people who fix computers, laptops. What's the worst thing you found on someone's computer? Used to work at a repairs and refurbish center. We worked on consoles and laptops. 4 laptops. Child porn. Happened maybe 3 times while I was there. Police are immediately called. 4 consoles. Cockroaches. None alive thankfully, but man, just systems full of hundreds of cockroaches, some of them fried on the board. The smell is even worse. We don't work on those, even when it's working. For health and safety reasons, we bag those and throw it out. Some other common strange errors: pet hair caught in cooling fan resulting in overheating, consoles full of sand. Do you guys bring your console to the beach? Sticking stuff in the disk drive. Found $1 once, as well as Wind Waker in an X360. I worked for my university's IT department in the laptop depot, so we basically would do any repairs on students, faculty, staff's laptops. We had this really solid warranty with Dell where they were 100% covered for 4 years, even including intentional misuse. We saw all sorts of laptops full of dust, smoke, beer, wine, liquor. They would always say they spilled juice on their laptop. I got to the point where I could replace a motherboard on a Latitude D630 in under 5 minutes. The only time I ever saw a laptop that we refused to repair was one dude who barfed all over his. My boss just put on rubber gloves, put it in a plastic bag, and mailed it to Dell to be replaced. Now imagine the poor fucker who opened that. I bet they were having a good day too. It was a hot day in the summer of 2008, and I just found out my dog died when someone once brought in a cooler to the repair shop. I was completely confused. Asked awkwardly if I could help the guy. Guy opens the cooler and hands me a freezing laptop that's keyboard is literally bowed out because of the ice that formed in the motherboard. Apparently the guy spilled water all over his computer and his friend told him to put it in the freezer so it would turn into a solid. Dumbest thing I have ever experienced. Edit. He also said he put it in the freezer because he figured I could just chip the ice off and everything would be fine. A 20-year-old friend's mother was going through her husband's laptop to fix some virus issues and found videos of their daughter, my friend, getting changed, taking showers, etc. on the laptop. Apparently the husband had hidden cameras in their daughter's room taking inappropriate videos of her for years. He's in jail now, but I can't imagine how that felt finding out that her own father that she loved and trusted was betraying her in the sickest way for most of her life. Edit. I looked up the news article about it and I was mistaken when I said he was in jail. He had a 9-month conditional sentence plus 2 years of supervised probation and had to participate in programs for sex offenders. I was seeing someone who told me on the 5th date that her parents who I'd met weren't her biological parents and that she was placed into care because her father molested her and her 2 sisters when they were younger. The only words I could string together when she told me this was, "Wow, that's fucked up." Yay, when someone just kind of drops that info on you, it's probably hard to think of an appropriate response. That's a horrible thing for her to go through. I can't even imagine. I was in bed with a girl I was recently dating post-coitus. We were talking about more adventurous things, toys and the like, and she says deadpan, "Well, I was raped." I think it's too soon for things like that, then curls up into a sad cute ball. I've never had my heart drop so far so fast and be totally WTF at the same time. I don't remember the next 30 minutes. Am a woman who's been in a similar situation. There's no good time to drop that info. Especially when adventurous sex stuff comes up, you have to just shut it down right then. You just have to say it and hope things go well. Edit. For those asking what the correct response is, there isn't one. All I can say is don't be an ass, and don't treat the person like they're a kicked puppy afterwards. Obviously be attentive and respectful about sexual boundaries, but don't treat them differently. Nothing is more frustrating than the people around you treating you like you're made of glass when you already feel violated as a person. As a guy, any time is the right time. We aren't going to ignore it or pretend you didn't say anything. We care about you, and if you tell us, it means a lot to us because it means you trust us. Don't not tell us for potentially years because there wasn't a good time. Yet, the first thing I think is, holy shit, she actually trusts me enough to tell me that. Then I WTF a lot. At least she was honest, but I can imagine it's hard to find something to say to that. My coworker asked me to fix his computer and I agreed since he was a nice guy. It turns out it was actually his 13-year-old son's computer. As soon as I got it I knew it was a bad idea. It was disgusting, covered in food particles and a white crusty residue I'm hoping wasn't preteen jizz. It wouldn't even boot up when I turned it on, but I managed to get inside with Windows Startup Repair. As soon as I logged in, I saw dozens of torrented video games and hundreds of GBs of porn. Oh boy. I ran a virus scan and it removed so many files that it corrupted the hard drive and prevented the laptop from booting. I spent over 20 hours trying to recover the hard drive, but it was royally fucked. I gave the laptop back to him after I was able to get it booted and agreed to stop fixing PCs on the side. Oh boy. The last company I worked for, I got a laptop back from one of the sales guys who was complaining that his computer was slow and kept crashing. He was the sort of guy who, rather than raise a ticket, sends an email with the entire exec team copied in about how he couldn't do his job because it were incompetent, etc., etc. Well, I got his laptop from him and noticed the hard drive was completely full. Most of the sales stuff is web-based, so there was no reason for the local drive to have anything on it. So, I had a look. Expertly hidden on his hard drive in a folder called Work Stuff was over 300 GB of naked pictures and videos of himself. Literally thousands of pictures of him naked, videos of him dancing naked, videos of him shoving things in his ass. One extremely awkward meeting with the guy's manager later, he was quietly let go. Reply all. Dear $sales guy, on behalf of the entire team, let me apologize for not planning ahead to provide you with the obviously necessary external hard drive to store your important work files. We usually send these laptops out butt naked with the bare essentials necessary for the average sales person to use the web-based software. Because we did not anticipate your long, hard days, we feel we are remiss in our duties. Have no fear. We have taken this opportunity to share the contents of your hard drive with our manager, as well as your manager in an attempt to better understand what our sales team does in the field so we can better prepare them going forward. While it was difficult getting your laptop functional at first, we were able to force our way in through the back door and really get deep into the bowels of your machine. Now, normally we prefer to dance around sensitive issues, and since this is a work laptop, and the content was obviously filed under work stuff, we felt it was important to note that while performing maintenance on your laptop, we found some unusual content. Did you know that you neglected to update your Adobe Reader software, your Chrome and Firefox browsers, and you apparently click yes to anything that pops up, according to the 10 toolbars installed on your IE browser? We also found evidence that there may be a necessary firmware update for your floppy parts. Oh, and HR will be talking to you about the 300 GB of nude photos and videos you incorrectly labeled as part of your work stuff. We ran a full search and could find no corresponding material in our organizational database. Please refer to the Employee Handbook section under Appropriate Computer Use. Your account and access will be terminated 3 minutes after we receive the read receipt of this email. You may collect your final paycheck from HR, and we would like to wish you the best in your future endeavors. P.S. Gary in Facilities would like a word with you about your impressive abilities. He is looking for a date this Friday and your video resume really outshines the competition. There may be a necessary firmware update for your floppy parts. First of all, 300 GB, that's like a second job. I have a small piece of black tape on my work laptop camera. My boss saw it and asked me why one day. He's awesome. He was more curious than anything. I said I don't have admin privileges on my laptop. And that was that. Fast forward a few weeks, there was a training conference with corporate. Sure as shit, they turned my camera on without warning or notice, and my screen just popped up black. When asked what was wrong with it, I said, "You never asked my permission to turn it on." They must not have wanted me to elaborate any further because they moved on pretty quickly. At my old job, some kid, prob 17 or 18 at the time, brought in his Asus gaming laptop for us to clean up. The thing was riddled with malware. Some of the files we had to manually delete, and when we went looking we found something interesting. He had hours of sex tapes with him and his girlfriend. Also keep in mind that this is when Windows 8.1 was new and the photo tile on the start menu cycled through saved content. When the kid came to pick up the laptop, the Photos app showed a preview pic with his GF's ass and his penis clearly inside her. We quickly flipped the laptop around claiming that we forgot to enable something and turned off a live tile feature so that the pics would show up. None of us that worked on the laptop said a thing to the kid or his dad when they came to pick it up. The Windows 8 Photos tile was a thing of beauty. So much unintended porn sharing. This feature alone makes me think no one at Microsoft is an actual goddamn human being who lives a real life. This feature went through months of testing and not one person with a brain cell knows. Hey, what if our customers don't want every photo on their PC plastered on the screen? I've seen some pretty gross stuff on people's computers, but the absolute worst was finding child pornography. I wrote about it on a post in our Talis from test support. Long story short, guy accidentally overwrote a partition on his hard drive. I performed a drive recovery and was confused to find a bunch of images with random file names. I thought that the recovery had failed, so I checked the files to see what they were. Police were called. I had a bad day, though not quite as bad as the computer's owner, I suspect. Couple of things. I found a dead rat inside a PC one time. Customer couldn't fathom why I shorted out. Thing was like a mummy too. Old 90-year-old dude comes in with a computer. Pop it on the tester, hook it up to a monitor, and his background is the most hardcore gay porno ever. There are like 10 customers waiting in the shop, so I quickly just turned the monitor off, swapped the desktop background out in the back and did the work. Was at an old couple's house backing up all their pictures, and those two old folks had some nasty self-filmed amateur porn on there. So many gray pubes. Had a customer come in and be like, I don't know why my computer isn't working. Load up the desktop and there's tons of malware. I ask what kind of sites he goes to so I can coach him on how not to get infected again, and like clockwork a bunch of malware pop-ups start flashing and playing the ass and titties song. Took everything in me to just hold it together. All the other things are par for the course. Shittily hidden porno folders labeled innocuously, like I'm not gonna see some random folder labeled beach stuff that weirdly has like 3 TB in it while I'm backing up your files. Web histories to Nazi sites. Married who 90% of their history is Craigslist hooker links. I mean, you work in it for like 10 years, nothing surprises you anymore. Had the FBI come in one time and take a computer that we were fixing. One lady just left her kid, 2-year-old, at the shop after dropping the computer off for like 3 hours till CPS came, and there was a giant brawl in the waiting area. Somebody took a dump on the floor in our line one time. All in all, it was a crazy job. My friend's dad used to fix up old computers and laptops, and one day he told us about this time this elderly man came into his shop to get his old desktop fixed. So he drops it off, and immediately my friend's dad notices it smells off, and I mean very off. So he goes to fix it, and when he pops open the side, I shit you not, 20 cockroaches climb out of this thing and scatter away. On the inside is this rotten piece of meatloaf left over which has turned moldy black and gross. My friend's dad said he almost threw up in the moment and they had to call an exterminator to kill the roaches. He called the elderly man back to tell him about his computer troubles. Apparently the old man had dementia or something and thought the computer was a fridge, and he had stored his leftover meatloaf in there. Needless to say, they did not fix his computer. This is why I no longer do repairs on people's computers. I had someone dropped off that I left on the counter for about a week before I got around to looking at it. Pick it up and a roach ran out from under it. Worked on it for a bit, then left to let a scan run for a while. Came back to a few more crawling around, pulled the cover off the bottom and it was full of them. I spent the next 6 months spraying my house constantly to get rid of these bastards. A week sitting on the counter and they had made it into every crack and crevice in the house. You saw a roach come out from under it and you kept working. That thing would have been in a garbage bag and on the curb as fast as I could run it there. I feel compelled to believe that this story is true, but I can't figure out why. Used to work at a small computer repair shop. Every now and then you'd find porn or something like that, nothing too unusual. The worst part was usually the physical state of the machines. As a courtesy, the shop I worked for would always blow the dust out of systems that came in. Smokers' computers were the worst. Years of tar and dust build-up just would not come loose. There was one system that as soon as we opened it, we saw dozens of roaches inside. We quickly closed up the case, taped up all openings, stuck it in a bag and fumigated it. There was this other time that a customer brought their system in for weird performance issues. Turns out that their cat puked through and the side vent all over the motherboard. Customer wanted to pay for us to clean it rather than replace it. I would have just told them that this wrecked their Mabo, that a new one was the only option. I don't think they wanted to pay for that. It was some 3 hours of labor for the cleaning, at $75 an hour, or replacing the door miner, and RAM plus labor since it was an older computer. I worked for a repair center for a few years. Most of the time it was usually like a family man with a hidden gay folder. Nothing wrong with that, but you could tell the wife and stuff didn't know. Found bestiality maybe once or twice. Both times were great days at work because the jokes were cranked too high those days. We found underage stuff only one time. We had this dude that came in all the time and he was weird as fuck. He looked like a stereotypical pedo you'd see on TV. He had long greasy hair, always wore sweatpants with jean shorts over top and a short sleeve polo with a sweater underneath. It was the strangest fucking getup ever. Anyway, he would come in every 6 months or so to have his PC worked on, and when we asked for the password to get into it he would refuse. So our only option would be to format the drive and reload the OS. So we did that every 6 months for like 2 years. One day he comes in and tells us not to wipe and reinstall this time and that he took the PW off the computer because he needs the data this time. We go through and get rid of the adware he kept complaining about. But I was curious now. So I went to his drive directory and typed JPG PNG into the drive search, which then locates all those extensions. Sure enough, it's what we all thought. So we called the cops, and had them wait in the building the day he said he was going to pick the machine up. Always wore sweatpants with jean shorts over top and a short sleeve polo with a sweater underneath. This is such a weird outfit, I'm legitimately having trouble imagining a visualization. Child porn on an executive's laptop. He was acting mighty suspicious when I was cleaning his computer and nervously looking over my shoulder, but then almost by the grace of the heavens, he stepped out for a moment and the virus scan went to where his collection was with common sex acts and the words PTHC and yo equals 5-14. I hid the scan in Systray, aborted the temp file cleaning to mitigate the chances of destroying evidence, snuck off into the restroom, and made the call. The guy was arrested within the hour, especially since the police station was only up the street, and even the FBI got involved. Edit: since it's become a frequently asked questions, PTHC equals preteen hardcore, or just about every single file within that folder had it. I wish I could go through life without learning that word, but when it shows up 50+ times for seemingly large video files, I had no choice but to Google what it meant. I personally like to think it means pathetic. The FBI generally gets involved when it comes to child porn cases. They can use the porn to locate and potentially save victims. My friend's dad is retiring from the FBI this year because he's been working on that for so long and it's too depressing. And I used to help write software machine learning stuff that NCMEC was considering using for the same purpose. Edit: minor note explanation, some people have thanked me. Don't thank my friend's dad. I didn't work on this, but where I interned wanted to offer some of their image recognition software to NCMEC. but what we had wasn't particularly what they wanted. Working there just gave me a scrape of an idea of what the people actually working on this do, in all respect and thanks to them. I had a buddy rejoin the military to go to Iraq because getting shot at by people made him feel better than investigating child porn for the FBI. The FBI doesn't force anyone to work CP, and those who do are evaluated by a psychologist every year to make sure they aren't getting burned out. Holy shit, did anyone tell him there are more than those two options? Haha. Speaking of which, if you want to help catch child abusers, Europol has a page where they request public assistance with identifying otherwise innocuous items in child pornography images videos. There's nothing graphic in the images, though it's a little unsettling knowing what's cropped out. Stop Child Abuse Trace an Object Europol webpage. Identifying the objects or locations can help them determine where the abuse took place, and potentially help them catch the abuser. Edit, and the FBI has a similar program seeking help identifying people involved in child abuse. FBI webpage. Thanks for the heads up, UI Shootlians. I actually recognized one of the images and I've sent in the information, and that'll tell them the country it was taken in. Thanks for sharing. God, imagine being one of the people that has to study those pictures for a living to try and find clues in them. When I went to hire a lawyer for my case against my abuser, I told her that the accused also had an open CP case and that she would potentially have to look at the photos from that case to identify if I was in them. She told me that she'd done it before and that it was a terrible experience and that she had to ask to step out for a minute to regain her composure. She was willing to do it again if necessary, but I could tell it had been an upsetting experience for her. Ninja Edit, please don't ask me about my own experiences. I'd prefer not to talk about that. I worked for Geek Squad and was told to make small talk with this guy while he was waiting for his computer. He ended up making some comments about how he loved some of these kids' movies, live-action Disney, and I found that a little odd. Minutes later he was hauled off in cuffs. I found out why he was arrested after the fact. Super creepy. Not me, but a guy I used to work with. He found pictures of the owner dressed up as a baby and getting Coke cans shoved into his ass. Edit, after reading more of this thread, I realized that the question was intended to be geared towards malware, weird user practices, weird hardware failures, etc. Oops lol. However, this is still a legitimate answer because it is definitely the worst thing I've heard of being found on someone's computer. Edit 2, actually, after checking back in I see that I'm not alone in answering the question with gross stuff. A crusty old man walked into the shop with a look in his eyes like a child who just stole from the cookie jar. The year is 2017, but he asks me if I can burn a CD for him. I am confused, but I indulge the customer's request. I ask him what he wants burned to the CD. He simply points to a folder titled New Folder. By instinct I double-click, and in that moment what little innocence I had left died. Inside that indescribable folder, hundreds of pictures of what I'm assuming is wife in what can only be described as explicit positions. I'm sure she is a fine lady, but age has not been kind to her. The lack of hygiene and poor diet didn't help either. Frozen in place, I slowly turn my head to the old man's gaze, only to be met with a simply indescribable grin and a slow nod. Never before in my life has I been that afraid, disgusted, and stunned, but I had a job to do. I grabbed a dusty old 700 millibars CD and burned those images to its form. It was done. The transaction was made, but I was robbed of my innocence and of my sanity. Yeah, that's pretty traumatizing, but in a really sweet way. He adores and loves his lady. I am going oh and cringing at the same time. A search history of a 13-year-old kid. His mom brought his laptop and because it needed cleaned up. A search history that started pretty normal for someone getting into the whole porn watching thing, like lesbians humping and doggy style. As time went, based on the timestamp of the searches, it only took 3 weeks to go from this to big black gangbang and granny squirters. Further on past these searches we got aggressive face fucking, which I feel is redundant since that seems to be an aggressive act by nature, and the most recent search I found was guys jerking off, so he went the whole spectrum from semi-normal searches to gay porn. My brother works on laptops and one time a guy came in to get Windows 8 put on his computer. This man was an old family friend, and while he was backing up files he found a video of the man's daughter. I won't go into details of what it is, for the sake of keeping my blood pressure down, but my brother immediately alerted the authorities and the man is now serving a 12-year prison term. He's just lucky my brother was at his place of business, or I believe he would have killed him instead of calling the law. What keeps someone from framing a person this way, though? Obviously that scumbag was guilty, not insinuating he was framed. I'd imagine forensics would look at the dates the material was added to the PC. If the hard drive has no trace of illegal material before the alleged frame, it would make more sense it was a frame job than someone just suddenly deciding to start keeping CP. I don't know. I remember one post a few years back of this guy who was looking for advice getting a job since he hadn't for a long time since he got put on a child sex offender list because he bought and sold porn back in whenever, and cops searched his shit and found that one of his hard drives had child porn on it and that was history. He'd never watched the shit, he'd never even opened that drive as it was an incoming shipment he hadn't gone through yet, but none of that mattered. My friend has a 10-year-old brother who wanted his computer fixed. It wasn't anything major, and all I had to do was clear and back up his files. I then decided to clear his history, because that can sometimes be a thing that slows your computer down, so I opened it. There was a ton of porn in his history, mainly really messed up hentai. Worst of all, he caught me looking at this shit. He got mad at me, and we never brought it up again. Okay, wait though. Why does clearing someone's browser history require looking at the browser history? I clear mine from time to time for the reason you listed above, but I don't think there has ever been a time where I needed to actually view my browser history. He got mad at me. You browsed through his history before clearing it, what did you expect? Does what I found in the keyboard count? I used to work in its support for a hospital. One of the PAs said her computer wasn't typing properly anymore. Called up, swapped out the keyboard and took the defective one back to the office. On examination, and after discreetly chatting with one of her colleagues, what we found was genuinely years of food particles under the keys. So many crumbs from hundreds of break time muffins and sandwiches had been dropped under the keys and compacted by typing that they couldn't be removed without a screwdriver and serious effort. We just dumped it into the medical waste incinerator. I found some shady stuff on a company's server and brought it to their HR manager's attention. Her response led me to end our business with the company that day. She really wasn't interested in hearing about it and told me that if I ever wanted to work for another company not to say anything or she would blackball me by calling every other large firm in the area. Long story short, I found proof that an employee was stealing from the company by taking royalties from a vendor that deliberately botched a project and was charging the company every month to fix it. Guy wouldn't give his password for a security conversion. Eventually he coughs it up. It is Lisa's 15. Naturally me and the other guys start joking around about who is Lisa. Some of us bet his wife, but others think his admin assistant, because he was so shy about it. We got a pool going about it. Someone had money on mistress. I went with admin assistant myself. So we go to the company page for his advisor office, which has a little blurb about the staff. No Lisa. My coworker goes, must be the wife then, and goes to the biography page, which usually has the advisor's family on it. I yell over my shoulder, what's the verdict, man? The guys are all just groaning at whatever it said, so I get up and go over and look. There is a family photo with a caption, Guy, pictured with wife Stephanie, 38, and daughter, Lisa, 15. We reported it to compliance. TL, DR, glue, sequin, and grease, plus a lot of viruses. In a con I was partially organizing, the PC hooked to the main screen, on which every single performance of the day, be it cosplay, music, or the karaoke program, had to be uploaded, fried at the start of day 2/3. In desperation, I had to send my laptop to the slaughtering ground. 21,396 viruses detected, then 3,402 malware spyware detected in the Malwarebyte scan. One of our partners, a professional French music syndicate, had so many viruses on their USB key my antivirus apparently crashed when they put it in. It took me an entire week to clean the software, and 3 more days to clean the hardware from the mix of cosplay glue, sequin and glitter, and for some odd reason, grease. I used to work for a Native American tribe, and the tribe's lawyer was an ass who demanded to be weighted on hand and foot. One day I was surfing through the program we used to remote into other computers, and it will take a screenshot of the last thing the computer was doing. There it was, he was looking at chicks with dicks. I notified my supervisor, which he notified his supervisor. I was told to look the other way. I gave up. You want me to enforce policy on other users but not him? So I found a new job and quit. I remember a child in the school I worked at decided to try and search for rape porn and woman being raped, which immediately alerted our system. We tracked the laptop by its MAC address to where in the building it was assigned to, and this little creep was sitting in the back corner of the library. We had alerted the support team to approach him and ask him what he was doing, and he said he didn't know what rape was and just wanted to learn about it. Well, how old was he? You say child, so I'm imagining an impressionable young kid that overheard some adults and their shitty behavior. If he was in grade school, I'd let him off the hook, but there is no way in hell a kid in high school won't know what that is. I don't fix computers, but my parents gave me a task of fixing the family computer. Few clicks here and there and I ended up on my sister's other Facebook account. She was selling herself over on FB. She posted her prices and schedule. She also had 100+ messages from guys asking to meet up. I felt so sick. I told my dad, expecting him to talk to her about it. He ended up kicking her out that night. Our family hasn't been the same since then. Edit. Spelling. How long ago was this, and how is your relationship with your sister now? This was about 4 or 5 years ago, not sure. It still shocks me that my family is still torn about this because my parents don't tend to hold a grudge for that long. Then again, this has never happened in our family before. I still love my sister. She's my little sister, one of my best friends, because we have practically the same sense of humor, and I'll always look out for her. My mistake was telling my dad, expecting he would talk to her about it. He always did that. Whenever we were in trouble, he would sit us down and have a conversation, starting off with, "Okay, what's going on?" This was the only time he didn't have a conversation with her. He just accused her of being a prostitute, showed her the FB and just kicked her out. I regret what I did because I wasn't expecting him to lash out that way. But she and I talk daily, and she's about to get married to a nice guy, so I'm glad it's working out for her. My ex-in-law's computer took the shit, so I pulled the HD out and installed as a slave in my machine to recover old photos onto a CD. This was a long time ago. I searched all the PIC file extensions and all the folders that had them popped up. One of the folders was named ex-wife's middle name and mother's maiden name. I clicked on it and found my ex-wife's escort photos, profile documents, etc. Yet, she left that little tidbit about being a prostitute out when we met and later got married. Words. Not me, but one of my brothers in it. He worked at a third-party Apple dealership, and was doing a data transfer for a customer from their old machine to their new machine. They would set people up with their photos in iPhoto as part of these data transfers. When they were importing the photos, iPhoto shows each photo for a second as it imports. Most of the time, people will just minimize the window to respect the privacy of the customer. Well, that didn't happen, and there were gigs and gigs of the customer, middle-aged mom, engaging in sexual acts with a dog. The worst part was, he had to help bring their new iMac out to their car when they came in to pick it up, and in the car was the dog in the pictures, looking like a very sad doggo. He was really upset by the experience and needed to take a few days to reset. Although I fixed PCs too, this was an iPhone repair. A 13-year-old girl came into my shop with a phone in her 70 or 80-year-old grandma. I always perform a diagnostic of all parts before I open a phone. Among precautions like checking the Wi-Fi and checking the LED on the back of the phone, I take a photo with both cameras to make sure they're working. On iOS at the time, it would show a preview thumbnail on the camera app of the last photo taken, and it was this little girl and her lil BF who snapped a photo of them in a doggy position. I didn't open the camera app for but a second because I was demonstrating the functions in front of the granny, and both the little girl and I locked eyes and exchanged holy shit looks. I immediately switched eye contact to the grandma and blurted, "Camera works." I closed that shit quick. "I got your back, lil tiny hoe, wherever you are." This was about 3 years ago. This was in an affluent Sacramento region mall. I don't know if that matters. On a general note, I see people's porn all the time. Not as much as I used to anymore though, because I serve businesses and not public retail. But sometimes people really are reckless enough to have porn-related web history, pics, etc. Dead mice, dogs that pissed over the PC and thus it stopped working, shitloads of porn. I never forget the story of the guy that brought in his computer for repairs, but it shut down so Chrome wanted to resume previous browsing session. So I sit there, half-open PC repair place that was combined with the store. 9 in the morning, my first repair have just gotten me some coffee and I press on yes default action at home to resume browsing session. Hardcore gay porn action sounding across the store. Haha, never will forget that. And this guy that wanted to run some kind of cam site, I guess, so he had his whole desktop full of folders with links to cam channels organized by the kind of things they would do on cam. Also a lot of pictures of people that throw away private pictures to the trash can without emptying it. Content: fixed a personal computer for a lady at work. She said there's probably pictures of my friends and I at parties. You're welcome to look, consider it my thank you for fixing my computer. She was a lesbian, and not unattractive. Neither were her friends. All kinds of nude pictures of her and friends in various, situations. Best day at work ever. Physical condition: smokers, always smokers. You smoke in front of your computer, the inside is going to look and smell like an ashtray. Absolutely disgusting. I struggle to see how that first one constitutes the worst thing you've found. Nothing I found looking through people's files, because I don't do that. But, for a while, I was the one who'd remote into people in the agency's computers to fix up stuff, fix the occasional connection problem, update software, blah blah blah. Remoted into an executive's computer on site, just to recover some stuff and update a few apps. Boom. Horsecock. Just like the deck. Not even like woman sucks off horse blower ARR MKVMP4 eggs, not paging bad dragon, rush order XL classic chance the stallion, just, on-screen, picture, actual, certainly, real, living, at one point, throbbing, horsecock. I just, didn't really know what to do about it. Went about my business, did the backups and updates, kept the image open, set the machine to sleep, sent a message to my super with the subject line explicit material that basically just said a $Cia had like a massive equestrian equine penis on screen, and I assume it was a joke or something, but like, remind people to not leave sensitive material open or unlocked on machines overnight. Just like, another legal warning or something, as opposed to Kyle $Cia has an open stash of pony porn. I live by the notion that that was my arrange by penis moment, but I've come across plenty of other explicit, stupid, or bad stuff on computers at work. That's just the one that stuck with me the most. Not on someone's computer, but in someone's computer. I used to do tech support in a major research institution, and some of the computers we worked on were in dark rooms which were used to develop gels. They are these little jelly-like plates with stripes on them that are used in biology to examine DNA. They are developed sort of like camera film with a chemical called ethidium bromide. Ethidium bromide is a potent mutagen, causes cancer and birth defects, especially if it is inhaled as a powder. Over time the computer fans would draw in ethidium bromide vapor and the inside of the computers become coated with a sort of white crust. We used to open the cases and blow this crusty dust out with compressed air. Nobody told us it was dangerous as hell. When we found out we were pretty outraged, went to the company safety officer, went to management, all that. They were completely unconcerned and their solution was to give us a box of latex gloves and tell us it was our job to check with the lab manager if we thought anything might be dangerous in a lab. I don't fix computers for a living, but as the tech guy in the family any problems would fall on me. My brother managed to get a real nasty virus. He had a secure browsing software to take tests on for school. This browser was just an eggs and wasn't installed. The virus only attacked this browser and flooded it with ads to the point to where you couldn't do anything. Deleted the eggs and downloading a fresh copy didn't help. It didn't affect Chrome, Firefox or IE. I had gotten this virus a few years earlier because I was confident in my ability to remove viruses. I should have known not to download from a Russian site. That virus survived every attack I threw at it and I eventually had to reinstall Windows. I half expected to see it come back after the reinstall because of how nasty it was. When I saw it on his computer I was given a second chance to take down this virus. After many hours of searching and posting in forums no one else could figure out a way to get rid of it. I gave up and reinstall Windows again. The LDR, a really nasty Russian virus that the internet had no known solution to get rid of. Here is my story. This goes way back to 1996. A large financial insurance company in Boston was going through a reorg and people were getting laid off left and right. They were also reducing their footprint since they own 2 buildings in Boston. My father-in-law was one of the workers who assisted with the downsizing. This was way back in before people had real data security departments or equipment disposal policies. To put the rest of my story in perspective, when they cleaned out a floor or area, they threw away donated the furniture or electronic equipment. Most of the workers who assisted with this basically kept and gave away to friends and family what was worth anything. For some reason my father-in-law was in charge of the computers. There was a stream of still decent 2 to 3 year old IBM desktops and monitors that found their way back to his house. I would log in as the local admin, shit security, and he had the password, and wipe the programs and or reinstall a new OS. There was one computer that he grabbed from a coworker. He said it was dead, and brought it home. It was less than 6 months old and had a 250 meg hard drive, which at the time was huge. My father-in-law was pretty tight with the guy and he seemed like an up-and-up dude. I eventually was able to get in after wiping some folders using a DOS-based disk MGMT software I had. When I started to poke around, the guy had a hidden folder filled with pictures of gay porn. That was not the disturbing part nor the fact that he used 200 plus meg, which at the time was massive. The disturbing part was the Wizard of Oz themed photoshoot. To this day every time the movie comes on I picture Dorothy as a 6-foot ripped gay guy with a porn stash. Never told my father-in-law what I found, but used to chuckle to myself when I saw the guy at family parties with his family. Edited, meant to say meg and not gig, so used to saying gig now. Thanks to the guy who pointed my mistake out. A laptop I looked at had a problem with crashing. After googling and checking some stuff out I found the worst feature in a computer I've ever seen. Windows decided to add this always ready feature that never fully shuts down the computer so it'll start up faster. Only problem is the memory runs out and it crashes after 20 minutes. All I could wonder was, why? All this time it wasn't a virus. It was Windows. Not worst in the porn sense, but a computer that had been completely unmaintained for close to 10 years. I was cleaning stuff up and did a DRS command on the temp folder. After 10 minutes, I asked them to let it finish and call me when it was done. I just had to know how deep the rabbit hole went. My hand to God, it took almost 72 hours to list the entirety of the temp directory on that computer. This will probably get buried, but I went to a trade high school. My trade was information technology. During my sophomore year, we did a community volunteer trip. We went to the local senior center and sat down with the older folks and showed them how to clear their cache and basic computer shit. The old guy who came up to me asking for help sat down and provided me with his laptop. He had me sign him in and then go about showing him stuff. Upon visiting his downloads folder, I was faced with hundreds of penis pictures of himself. He giggled next to me. I cringed and closed out of it. Next up, he had me go into his web browser to clear the spammy extensions. More pictures, more videos. I noped right out of there and went into his documents folder to clear that out with him. Upon getting to it, I found a ton of fucking kiddie porn. I excused myself to use the bathroom and went and told my teacher. She informed the staff at the senior home and the police came. He was arrested and I had to go down to the police department and give a statement. Craziest shit ever.